From TE Connectivity, this is Maker to Maker, conversations between engineers about engineering and the beautifully messy process that is design. I'm your host, Brooke Glassman, and today I'm talking with Senior Mechanical Engineer at Peloton, Beda Pormentilla. Welcome, Beda.
Hi, Brooke. Thanks for having me today.
Tell us a little bit about what you do right now for Peloton.
I'm a Senior Mechanical Engineer working for Peloton. My main responsibilities are specific to the tread platform, so that's Peloton's treadmill. And I've been working primarily on our drive and incline motors as of the past few months.
Can you talk a little bit about how aesthetics and customer perception come into play when you're making your decisions and designing?
I've always been big into design, and design in its many forms, right? So we're talking form, fit, and function. But obviously, when it comes to user perception, the first thing they're going to notice is how a product looks. And so that connection, making sure that not only does your product work, does it work well, but can it also engage with the customer in a way that's very clean, right? And something that they can almost not only use it functionally, but also it's like some people will like to look at it as a work of art. And so for me, it's always like, as an engineer, I like to think very pragmatically when it comes to my problem-solving skills. But there's also a part of me that's very in tune with, I want to say, the aesthetics and the industrial design side. No exposed wires, nothing that gives off the impression that it's a product that's sub-quality. And so, for me, in my own specific line of work, I pay very particular attention to that. The product has to work well, and if it can look great, that is an absolute added bonus.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And with the Peloton having the bikes and the treadmills, in people's homes, how it looked is kind of important. If you want your apartment to look clean and sleek and nice, you don't want a product sitting in the corner of the room that looks really out of place or not aesthetically pleasing.
Speaking from personal experience, like I have a Peloton bike, and I actually put it I don't necessarily put it in the corner of my living room. I put it where people can see it initially, because it really does grab people's attention. And when they see it, there's an automatic draw to it, right? So it not only does it, give you that cardiovascular exercise, but it also grabs your attention. It's a super sleek and clean design. So the bike and the treadmill, I want to say, they have that aesthetic flair where if you look at other bikes or treadmills out on the market, there is a very distinct pull, right? So I call it like the Peloton pull.
I love that. I love that it's more of a centerpiece for you. Yeah, I feel the fitness space is definitely a space I feel like is evolving, and it's becoming more technologically savvy, I guess. There's a lot of different things you're starting to see, and Peloton obviously has the screen and it feels like it kind of immerses you into a class. But there's a lot of just fitness stuff that's coming out. And you saw that even a little bit at the Consumer Electronics Show this past year in Vegas. So I know we were talking a little bit about how there's a lot of cool technology coming out. Was there anything that kind of caught your eye or that you're excited to see come to fruition?
I want to say, aside from, let's say, the connected fitness industry, wherein there are a lot of improvements being made and a lot of new companies coming up, I would say that I'm very much excited about the whole VR movement, and VR paired with AR, right? So the virtual reality in addition to the augmented reality, I see it as a natural segue for us as a society to hopefully become more connected and engaged with our friendships and our relationships with people. It's one of these things also where, specifically when it comes to AR technology, I can see it being used in engineering as a means to better design products and better integrate, various aspects of design, engineering, manufacturing. I saw, I believe it's the Microsoft HoloLens, So it was one of these technologies where you can very seamlessly and easily augment, whatever product or project that you're working on, and overlay that on your physical reality. And I've always thought that, we're years away from that, but with the technology becoming, even more commercially available, I'm hoping that within the next 3 to 5 years, if not sooner, it's something that I can just get my hands on and hopefully use that as a means to better design, better engineer and better manufacture products.
I love that take on it. I guess I've never really thought about how it can directly help you as a mechanical engineer designing products, but that's so true. If you're able to overlay it and kind of step into it in a different light, it gives you a completely different perspective. It does kind of feel like a lot of that technology, even as I read about it, I used to think kind of like you was so far off. It seems like such future stuff. I remember reading in a book, they had these contact lenses that you could do so much stuff with. And it just seemed like, wow, that's a future thing. But now, like you said, the virtual reality, the glasses, everything, it's getting closer and closer. And it kind of begs the question of, do you think our world is heading towards a Ready Player One kind of metaverse like Facebook is proposing? We're starting to kind of see that. Do you think the future of Peloton is stepping into a metaverse and getting on Pelotons with your friends?
Yeah. I've oftentimes thought about this, and a quick side note: Ready Player One. So I've read the novel and I saw the movie, and so it's easily one of my top 5 novels and movies of all time. Just the way it was presented and the way it made its way from the novel to the big screen, it just literally, it blew my mind away. And so, for me being an engineer and being very heavy in the tech space, I'm a big proponent for, this future that we're hopefully stepping into when it comes to a more integrated society, right? And I think the best way to do that is being able to see things as a series of technological progressions. And so in the 80s, silicon itself was essentially the foundation for building microchips. And then all of a sudden you see microchips building or evolving into their next phase of computers, right? Computers and the rise of the internet making their way into Facebook, Google, right? Social media, etc. And so now I think with all of these platforms and foundations having been laid, I think a lot of what's coming up are, how do we better leverage all of these technologies to make a more connected world? And I think that'll eventually go into it'll go outside of what it was meant for initially, which is to connect with friends, but it also help us become a more connected society professionally. I work with a lot of vendors overseas, and I think being able to, let's say, meet in a virtual environment, it may seem a bit off-putting for some, but I would personally love that. And I think, how much more awesome would it be if you can take, let's say, you can take a gym class, a gym session, having a personal trainer who is virtually next to you, but also being able to get that workout in, and so it's one of these things where I'm hoping that technology really does open us up as a society to become more connected. And I think, the roadmap towards being able to do that is through VR, is through AR, and in this case, more connected equipment and products such as the Peloton bike and the treadmill.
Yeah, Ready Player One was actually the book that when I was going into college, it was our required reading assignment. And so that's how I was introduced to Ready Player One. And I remember thinking, Lehigh is having a good first impression for me. This is a great book. I loved the concept. It obviously outlines some of the dangers, of course, of virtual reality and augmented reality. As with anything, as we're developing new technology, there's new risks and new things you have to consider because it's territory we haven't really touched before. But your point about having meetings, if you have a team in China or India and you're sitting here in the US, that would be awesome. And we say today the world is a small place. They'll make it that kind of technology will make it feel just that much smaller, but maybe for the better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And as one of the team building exercises that Peloton has come up with, we've essentially all been working from home, and so the company thought it would be, pretty cool for us to have these so a set of Oculus VR goggles so that we can better connect and engage with our teammates. Because there is such a thing as Zoom fatigue, and I've certainly hit that threshold in the past where, I'm not used to seeing my teammates on a 2D screen, and so we figured, okay, maybe we can experiment and try out, how does virtually meeting up with your teammates and engaging with them on that, on that playing field, how will that help foster a more collaborative environment? And for me, it's been working out great. Personally, and then also for the team, like we'll play games in VR, Beat Saber, golf, which is also pretty cool. But basically anything that can just get us out of our own headspace and really connect with our teammates. I think as important as it is to like working, or I should say love working for a company, it's also very important to connect and really love your teammates, right? I mean, I spend a lot of time with my teammates and my colleagues. And so for me, it's very important for us to connect not only on a professional level, but also on a friendship level, and that's basically been the case. So yeah, it's been nothing but positivity and I want to say awesomeness when it comes to working with my team at Peloton.
I would love to do that. I think my team should do that kind of bonding activity. That's really cool that you guys are implementing that. And I do think connecting with your teammates is important. In this virtual world, there's a lot of challenges to it and a lot of adaptation, but I definitely do miss some of the in-person things, and some of that you just can't replace. Maybe you can a little bit if you use virtual reality. So that I do think that's awesome. And as you kind of look back on your career, whether it's here at Peloton or at some of the other companies that you've been at, are there any engineering challenges or projects that really stick out in your mind?
I always bring it back to so the early days of my career, and I say that because it really helped lay the foundation of who I am today. So going from college, taking all of these exams, essentially going off of the textbook and then applying these theoreticals right into a lab environment. That's one thing, but then being able to actually work with a team and then develop a product that has real world applications, that for me was it was very daunting at first, because now there's a lot more. There's a lot more responsibility and accountability involved. It's not just getting a B or a C on an exam. It's developing a product and then having real world consequences when it comes to the user experience. And so for me, one of these experiences was when I was working for a defense contractor, and this was after my time with the Department of Defense. We were working on a product that required the use of so they call them dead man casters, and essentially what that means is if you've ever been you've been to an airport and you've seen those carts where in order to move the cart you have to depress a handle in order to get it rolling. And the moment you take your hands off that handle, the cart automatically stops. And so there was a requirement for the Navy to develop a very similar caster, but in this case, it was used to hold and house very sensitive equipment. I want to say missile payloads. And so you can imagine if something goes off, something goes wrong, that can potentially be extremely catastrophic. And
yeah, that'd be bad.
right? And so at the time, being the junior engineer and working with the more senior engineers, I really took it upon myself to be very proactive in the brainstorming sessions, in the prototyping phases, and it was a lot of iteration. So we had mocked up a deck, so one of these U.S. naval carrier decks that were two specs. So it was per the military specifications when it comes to the actual deck coating and the deck or the painting that is used for those decks. And so we had done a lot of our own in-house testing, and it was one of these things where we came up with ideas, and it must have taken over 100 iterations for us to finally come up with a very viable and very legitimate solution that was not only effective in terms of how it functioned, but also very easy to mass produce. And so, I came in with my equations, and I was thinking, okay, does it really make sense for us to design around these components? And then after some time, after I want to say after a lot of prototyping and testing, I was able to finally come up with a solution that I proposed to the engineering team, prototype that solution, and then test it out. And then next thing you know, we were able to meet all of the requirements of this actual design. It was very hectic. There were times when I was thinking to myself, can we actually come up with a very viable solution? And it's like what Thomas Edison says, right? It's genius or success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And because once that idea came up, and we essentially went with it, and then put in all the hard work, and next thing you know, it became a very legitimate solution to a very sensitive product. So yeah, and that carries on with me today. So I take that mentality where I love the ideation phase when it comes to engineering, but I also know it's important to put in the work and, get my hands dirty type of thing to come up with a very elegant solution.
As an engineer, do you feel like that has kind of shaped or reshaped the way that you look at the world and maybe even everyday problems that you face in your life?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's I recently purchased a 3D printer for myself at home. I'm very much of one of these DIY or do-it-yourselfers where, if I can design something let's say on SolidWorks to come up with any solution, like no matter how simple, if I can design it myself, print it, and then use it for that specific application, then it's me essentially getting that pat on the back, right? And it could be anything. Like I've oftentimes, so curtains, right? So I have curtains at home that I got tired of just pushing off to the side and tying, which got very repetitive. So I ended up 3D printing these curtain rods or holders, which I could have gone to Target or IKEA and bought like a very similar set of. But I figured it's almost too easy. So let me see if I can, let me see if I can design it myself, put a little bit of my own aesthetic flair into this, and then let me see if this actually looks nice at home. And fortunately it did, because I do the same thing with my kids. I'm currently building a robot bunny with my daughter, so we've gone through a prototype phase where we made one out of cardboard. And this is using one of these tiny DC motors with on-off switches and a 9-volt battery. And the next phase, which we're both very excited about, we're going to be designing in CAD and then 3D printing using our at-home 3D printer. So yeah, that's going to be the next big thing that we do as a family.
That's so cute. A robot bunny, you said?
A robot bunny, yeah. Yeah, so essentially it'll hop, and the DC motors are there for, to generate that hopping motion. So yeah, we're keeping our fingers crossed that it does work. The prototype worked great, but then again, it was cardboard. So now, we're thinking if we can make one out of ABS, printed ABS, we're hoping that'll be even better. And she's excited. She wants to take it to school for show and tell. So yeah, we're both very excited about it.
That I feel like if this one works, you're going to be making every animal. Like there's going to be a dog, there's going to be a cat, there's going to be a horse, and next thing you know, you're going to have like a 3D printed farm in your house.
I think you're right. That is definitely in the works for the future. So.
All right. Well, on that note, Beda, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about your journey and your love for engineering.
Yeah, absolutely, Brooke. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me on. This was awesome.
Please come back next time by subscribing to the show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, think big, move fast, and make every connection count.